Sorry. Okay.
Okay, hang on. The recording just told me it's
If in
okay.
some time, if in some moment you want me to suspend the recording, I can do it. You ask it.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Let's go.
Let's see how far we can get. No, thank you for putting this together, Adriano. I am intrigued in wondering what are the interests, the highest interests. Well, first of all, I'd like to know, Mikhail and Emeline, will you be going, or Robert too? Will any of you be going to COPUS legal subcommittee, or the general meeting in the summer?
I'm not planning to, but I might if needed.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Okay.
not for me, because I am also
Okay.
busy during those particular times.
Okay.
Possibility.
Robert?
Possible.
Possible? Okay, and possible for Adriano. Okay. Well, I've gone off and on to these meetings, and I went to the last general meeting, for instance, last summer. And what I'm noticing is that there are certain issues that are connected to each other that are really getting hot now. And hot meaning contentious. And you know, it's all with diplomatic language and all that, but it's becoming very contentious, especially with some of the, you know, geopolitical problems that are occurring now with Russia and Ukraine, and now with the Gaza Strip and so forth. So there's a lot of tension in the air, but the space issues are in a cluster. The one cluster has to do with the quiet and dark skies, and I believe, Emeline, if I remember correctly, New Zealand is a big one, has a lot to say about that. And I can't quite remember why. I think it has to do with telescopes there. But anyway, that's very big, very big. Chile also very, very big. And, you know, astronomers all around the world. I just met with Richard Green, and I was in Tucson. I see, Robert, you're shaking, you're nodding. You know him, I guess.
Yeah, no, I know the issue, the telescope issue, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know the issue, yeah. So, yeah, of course, and so what's connected to this issue? It's not just orbital debris, which used to be the issue, but now it is satellite constellations. And so, really what we're talking about are Starlink constellations.
Correct, yes. Starlink for starters, but I mean, just down there 2 miles from me, Amazon is going to duplicate and then have even larger constellation. So they are a huge problem. I mean, somewhat they're a bigger problem than the light, because you can't go anywhere on the Earth and get and avoid the LEOs.
Exactly. So see, and of course now every time I see, you know, first I heard, oh, there's going to be 20,000. Then I heard 40,000. Then I heard 60,000. I don't know, you know, and also already, as far as I know, only the Starlink satellites have had to move out of debris thousands of times already, something like 25,000 times.
It's averaging 70, I think, a day.
What's that?
It's averaging 70 a day autonomously.
Wow, 70?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and it's only going to get worse. So I just can't imagine. And, you know, once you get up around 600, now the Starlinks usually are lower, around 400 kilometers. But once you get around they want to be up at 600. That's where they want to be, 600, 700 kilometers in the polar regions. Anyway, enough said. It's getting very contentious, and a really interesting thing has happened in that Russia and Iran have complained bitterly about the Starlink satellites. But I just found out that Russia, well, there's a report, let me put it this way. There's a report that Russia now is making use of them after complaining about it. So we'll see if that's true. That's a report. But anyway, the thing is that, and I get a little bit more, and then another issue I want to explain is, and then I want to get to, you know, what I think might be a good tactic, and this is as far as getting our agenda of humans into space. What could be our strategy? Not a tactic, but a strategy. But let me just finish with the other big issues. Another cluster of issues has to do with the march to the moon. You got the Artemis folks, you know, and anybody know the latest? India was the latest to sign up, I think. I don't know how many there are now. It's like 20 something, right? And now there's a group that they're aligned with China, also going to the moon and participating. So there's this huge march to the moon, and connected to that is also the utilization of space resources. So, and connected to space resources is governance. Okay, so you've got another cluster of issues there that are all connected together. And I'll give you one more, and it's connected to all of them, everything that I've said so far, and that is garbage. There's garbage on the moon, there's garbage in orbit, there's waste. And I'm planning to make a big technical talk about doing something about waste, because I think there's a gap in the Outer Space Treaty. As good as it is, they don't say anything about best practices to avoid junk in orbit on the moon and elsewhere. That has to do with waste. And anyway, we can talk more about that. But anyway, getting back to Ireland and New Zealand. Okay, so my idea for a strategy, and please weigh in, let me know if you have a better idea about this. What I've noticed, just both in my former job and in doing this, is that there are certain countries come in with political baggage, right? Geopolitical baggage. And even if they have a good idea, if they come in and they give that idea first, they get automatic knee-jerk contrary advice and contrary notions and so forth. Let me give you an example. United States. There are certain things that I would hate to see the United States do first, because right away you have a geopolitical problem with other countries like Iran and Russia. And vice versa, right? So what this is why I kind of like Ireland and New Zealand, and I would like to know about what you folks think, what you think those governments are most likely to push for. Do you happen to know who the representatives are that go to, or can you find out who the representatives are that go to the COPUS meeting? I would love to go meet with them and so forth, and find out if we can align our interests somewhere. Not in everything, but at least where can we align our interests? I would like to just mention one other thing. The National Space Society, unfortunately, is called national, but it's an international organization. So I don't know how it has the name national is because of some of a historical issue that has plagued us ever since.
We could
But
invite, we
it-
could invite the NSS to be the USA chapter of Space International. That would be a great thing.
No, that would be terrible. No, that would just, no, that would make it, everybody think, oh, you're just representing the United States. That's all you're just talking for the US government. We're
Yes,
not,
of course, because
we're not talking for the US
it's the
government.
elephant and the mouse. Yes.
Elephant in the room, yeah. Anyway, so I'll shut up now. Let me know what you think, you folks, Mikhail and Emeline. What,
Okay, I can go first.
okay,
So Ireland is a small country, and which has benefits and disadvantages. I'm constantly involved with one particular bit of the government, which is representatives for European Space Agency, which run several programs, mostly in relation to PNT, and all used for different industries in Ireland. And
I'm sorry, I missed one thing.
position in navigation and timing. So basically, GPS use
Yeah.
of the space. I just started following them and attending the meeting, so I'm involved in that. So I don't necessarily know anyone in the government, but every now and then I bump into different ministers from the government, including the prime minister. And a couple of times I just had a prime minister in front of me, but I didn't have any topics to discuss, so I just didn't want to. And my goal was a part of this conversation and is to understand exactly that. What would be our angles, who we should target, who we should talk to. For the Ireland is not part of Artemis Accord. And I think, I don't know why, I suspect it's kind of too much of neutrality position for now. This is my understanding, maybe because Ireland doesn't have a space agency, although we have about 200 small and bigger companies who are involved in space. We had some sensors which have flown on Artemis, on Orion, and we have several satellite dishes, including some big dishes. So
you have 200 companies?
Small companies doing small things like radiation sensors, cables. We have radio telescopes around the Cork, including 30 meters radio telescope, 1x25, pretty big dish, which is idle now. And there is a big campaign to invest into maintaining it properly and then be plugging into deep space network and something. So there are different bits and pieces along the board. For the angles which we can be using. So basically, I wanted to know what and who to talk to and what to talk to about next time I bump into someone or actively seek meeting with someone through my government connections, which are small ones I have. We have pretty big astronomy group, a big number of astronomy groups. I'm not sure the dark sky, is it a big issue or not, because Ireland is kind of at the edge of the inclination for the Starlink satellites. Maybe it still makes no difference, and we have pretty much light pollution. I will chat with them, and I will find out, is that a big issue or not? If it is, it may be one of the paths to the Irish government. Irish as a country are more somehow on the Palestine side, predominantly in this Middle East conflict. I don't know, will it help or not help in this whole thing? And I don't know how to deal with that, actually. And other than that, I cannot think of any other angle other than I need to find out why exactly Ireland hasn't signed Artemis Accord, because this may actually
would be helpful.
Clarify the position. So I'll put it as an action item. So that's all on me.
Okay, that's very helpful. Yeah, if you can find out why, I'm sure, I'm guessing they want to appear neutral. Yeah, I understand that. But it'd be really interesting to know, though, of the 200 companies, how many are connected to astronomy, and how many are connected to the moon, to the lunar, move to the moon with the other, spacefaring countries.
interested to the lunar
There's a nexus I forgot to tell you about. When I talked to Richard Green, who's the head of this delegation that goes to talk about quiet and dark skies and the astronomers' interest, he represents the astronomers' interest worldwide. You know, he has to, and they're very interested in the moon also, because so there's this nexus with quiet and dark sky and the moon, because these issues are all connected, because they want two kinds of telescopes on the far side of the moon. Okay, they want optical and they want a radio telescope on the far side of the moon. And they've got the locations all planned out and everything. And they want a gravity meter, a gravitometer meter. I can't pronounce it, but it's to measure.
Gravitometer.
That's it, gravitometer. Thank you. To measure gravity waves. Okay, and so what does this have to do? This has to do with governance, because they're worried about, and I'm worried, terribly worried about dust on the moon. As you know, rockets landing on the moon, the dust comes out ballistically, and it can go up very high and stay very long, and it's dust from hell. It gets into machinery, it gets into the space. They even got into the spacesuits, you know, inside. It's terrible. It's electrostatically charged. It's terrible stuff. So they are very worried. So that connects them to utilization of space resources. It connects the astronomers also to governance. Okay, so again, you know, I presented these at first as separate clusters of issues, but actually they're all connected one way or another. So anyway, that's very helpful. And anything you can find out about those companies and what they do, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll find out. And I would expect also Ireland as a country will be more interested in monitoring sea resources, because fishing is a big thing here. Farmers, because that's a big cattle farming. And since Ireland hosts all major IT companies, European headquarters and production facilities, including data centers for Europe, maybe communication connectivity through space via space may be a big issue. So, but I'll investigate and I'll find the list of all Irish space companies, and I'll send them to you and circulate, just so that we're aware.
Okay, I'll get to you, Emeline. I'm sorry, you just said something. I'm going to give a presentation about waste and about how we should go from green technology or green development to blue development, where we use all our waste. And I'm starting with plastic in the oceans. Okay, did you know that in our bodies now we have microplastic in our blood and organs? We all have it now. So anyway, that's just, you know, that's an interesting nexus again with waste on Earth, waste in orbit, waste on the moon. And God, let's stop this. Anyway, so okay, Emeline, sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. So yeah, maybe in context. So I'm American that's living in New Zealand for the past like 7 years.
Okay.
And New Zealand is also a small country, just like Ireland. But so the New Zealand Space Agency got started in 2016, very new. It's really more of a policy and regulations body. I basically created with my husband a social enterprise called Space Base, and our focus is to help catalyze the industry here since we've been here. So we do know most of the people in the New Zealand Space Agency, because we have either advised or done programs with them. We run a Pacific-wide space challenge, kind of like within where they're actually sponsors.
Question though, but you have a private company that connects to these people?
Yes, so it's a non-profit company.
It's a nonprofit.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit, and so we know most of the people in the agency because it's pretty small. It's like, I think there's about like 30 people in the agency. We also just got a new Minister of Space. She's like fairly new, but I've also connected with her. The agency is a policy making body, so it only focuses on regulations and licensing, among kind of like other things. And so for the past like years, it's only been focused on creating regulations. Just a few months ago, they released the space policy for the country, and then there's also an aerospace strategy. So here they actually clump together aviation and space. So when they talk about aerospace, it's like both, and the space is kind of like just a subset of it. The thing to note, I guess, with New Zealand is, of course, Rocket Lab was founded here, and it is a big player where a lot of their operations is still here. But at the same time, there's now also I guess you can say, like, purely space companies. There's about like 24, but about, even from 7 years ago, we have about like 200 plus organizations, so companies, educational institutions that are like focused on space. And that was a basis for a Deloitte report back in 2019, where they pegged 1.7 billion as the kind of like the overall contribution of the industry to the national GDP.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on, Emeline. There's something I'm not understanding. First, you said there was 36 space companies, right?
24. So
24.
those are 24, meaning that those were actually birthed as space companies, as opposed to.
But then you said there was 200.
Yep.
Companies focused on space.
Organizations, educational institutions that have like some space activity. So they're not necessarily, they're not necessarily just like space companies, but they have some initiatives or activities that they're working on in space.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
Then let's see. So other things to note in terms of infrastructure, there's the Rocket Lab, launch platforms in the North Island. They're also starting to create some in the South. There's Leo Labs, basically one of its big radar stations is here. So
Leo Labs, very important.
Yes, and then there's also ground stations as well.
Now the ground stations are what? They're both optical and microwave, and what other?
Yeah, so like Planet, SpaceX, also European Space Agency. Because these are ground stations that are actually monitoring some of the constellations that are up, but also those that are going kind of into deep space when they launch. So
this is what I was remembering. I think there was the last time at the last meeting at Copolis that I remembered New Zealand having quite an interest in the quiet and dark skies. It must be because of these monitoring stations.
Well, kind of like yes and no. I think culturally, they're very much into dark sky. Well, there's a number of dark sky reserves in New Zealand. And so, and then culturally, they are thinking.
Polynesian, is this the indigenous Polynesian?
Yeah, so the Maoris are
Maori.
basically in very much into astronomy and celestial navigation, and so that's why
And the
they're
heavens
very,
and all that, yeah.
yes, and so they're very much into making sure that you preserve dark skies. But that's really like that's one part of New Zealand. But I think one thing, the angle here is that in the space strategy, they're really focused a lot on sustainability. And of course, sustainability is a word that's been used for many different definitions. But one thing that we're observing, especially with the 24 companies that are here, everything is focused on sustainable space, either in space debris mitigation or space situational awareness. These are the kind of like the areas that at least the new companies that we're seeing are really focusing on. So they're very big on that. And I think that's the angle with the 18THSDG, where we're all about sustainability and making sure that we're leveraging space in a responsible way. I think that's the thing that will really resonate for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I failed to mention earlier when I was talking about all these other issues that sustainability is connected to all of this stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's really, and I do agree also that the 18th SDG is the angle, the strategy we should use is that it helps to make things more sustainable. And we talk about how if you live in a contained atmosphere in space, you're downwind and downstream from everybody, and you can't pollute at all, and waste has to be, you have to be totally recycling everything and using waste and converting it back into product, useful products or elements for your survival. So yeah, I think that is the angle. Yeah.
So going back to the New Zealand Space Agency, I don't know specifically who the representative that they sent for COPUS, but I will find out.
That would be great if you could find out. And I'll just I'll be there with a guy named he's from Germany. His name is Paul Wundrel, and he's a young man, a lawyer, very smart. Just getting into space, learns very quickly, so I will make sure that Paul also gets connected with these folks, whoever's coming. And well, okay. One other thing that I guess it's good to mention here is that there's been, and when you were talking about regulations, it brings this up. In the past, before these other issues got to be so hot, one of the big issues was governance. But it was more of a theoretical type of, the talk was more theoretical. Now that we're actually getting, where people are, well, we just had the first private company land on the moon, right? Their name escapes me, but anyway, so
Intuitive
now that
machines.
What is it?
Intuitive machines?
That's it. Intuitive machines. So, yeah. I mean, now people are realizing, the delegates are all realizing that, hey, it's really going to happen. It's really happening now. And so it's this whole idea of governance and utilization of space resources, doing it carefully, is becoming very keenly felt. It's not just theoretical anymore. So there was one group that in the past has been kind of a top-down group, And they wanted to have a treaty first, about how to deal with space. Another treaty. They wanted another treaty. So it was the treaty first group. I'm sort of generalizing now. And then there was the bottom-up group, and I confess I belong to the bottom-up group. When I say bottom-up, I mean that. Well, if you go back to the past, and you see how these treaties were made. They were made with diplomats. Okay, I'm a former diplomat, and I'm criticizing it because there are diplomats. They have zero or very little private industry input. Okay, so that was a typical treaty first type thing. And one of the problems is that with treaties with a bunch of diplomats is that it takes a long time to get consensus to have a treaty. It takes a long time. And once it becomes written down and accepted and ratified in all the countries, whatever, it's like iron. It's very inflexible, right? So what I'm starting to see are framework agreements, okay, in which there are participants from NGOs, from, like us, and private companies and governments, framework agreements, so that are adaptable, that come from the bottom up through consultations and cooperation. And I mean, this is an ideal. It doesn't always happen this way, but you can see the Hague group, the Hague building blocks. If you read the Hague building blocks for governance, I can't remember the whole title, something like that. You will see them use the word framework over and over and over again. That's not an accident. That is not an accident. So the thing is about the bottom up, that is that it can adapt and evolve according to changing technology and also changing activities, new activities, changing activities. And so part of that, though, bottom up, also includes these regulations from different companies, different countries. So when you talked about Luxembourg, for instance, came up with their set of regulations. If these framework agreements the regulations can be informed from the framework agreements and vice versa. And they can evolve. And now you have New Zealand doing the same thing. So, and you have regulations coming out of the United States, and they look, they're both China and the United States are carrying out activities, and it's soft law. Often it's norms. There are norms of behavior, of activities. Well, that stuff, though, as it evolves, eventually it can be codified in a treaty. But if you do it too soon, you end up with stasis and you have a problem. That's my opinion. So you don't have to agree.
No, but it's similar.
Mikhail wants to say something.
Yeah, similar process in the commercial astronaut safety regulations.
Yeah.
FAA doesn't want to regulate and is waiting for the industry to come up with a set of standards and then make a decision. And similar, I'm a skydiving instructor. Similarly, USPA, United States Parachute Association, it's a self-regulating organization because we don't want to be regulated by FAA. And for as long as we demonstrate to FAA that we are safe using our own rules, they won't interfere, and we can come up with their own rules. So there are certain parallels here in both of those.
Yes, very best practices. Evolving best practices. That's what's missing from the Outer Space Treaty. And that's why we have all that junk in space right now in orbit, because there's a gap. There was no coming together multilaterally and talking about best practices to avoid that kind of contamination. You know, if you look at, there's an article, what is it, Article 9, I think it is, anyway, that talks about, you know, don't, oh, okay, somebody's at my door. I'm almost done here anyway. So let me go answer the door. I'll be right back. Now you can talk about it while I'm out of the room.
It was very useful, actually. I have my action item list. I know what to do now.
Good. I'm very happy that Emeline could join us because so this is a part of the work that is done. Okay, so during the POC meeting in 3 days, we will talk about the program, about the events, about the materials and all of these things, and hope that the other members will appreciate what we are doing. And yes, if you like, we could talk a little bit together with Alfred about the topics for our 2 events. I think you received my proposal topics, right? You got it?
Yeah.
Robert, I know Robert got it, but I don't know if Mikhail and Emeline got.
I think I did get it.
Okay, I'll open it here and share it so we can show it to Alfred too.
Okay. All right, well. So, anybody else want to say? I'm sorry, maybe I went on too long there.
Alfred,
Yeah,
what we are this. I'm sorry, maybe somebody want to say something more.
Yeah, just a quick comment on the communications. First of all, do you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So some technical background, because so many of these policy issues have technical and diplomatic. I mean, they're all intertwined. So we have this crazy metric that we measure the competition between countries, the space race, in terms of numbers of launches, because I guess that's the easiest metric, which is quite silly, because we are most of the launches right down the road here from Kennedy Space Center. Most of them are not particularly technologically advanced. Many of them are, but not a significant number of them. And many of them are the Starlink satellites and soon to be the equivalents. So meanwhile, some of the China ones are, they're launching similar capability, but in GEO for communication satellites. So similar to the Inmarsat GEO satellites, where you only take 4 or 5 satellites, you cover the entire country, the entire world, not 20,000. But the technology now is for a higher bandwidth of smaller satellites and higher speed and lower latency. I mean, they're really accomplishing these technological marvels. So I can imagine that they would be pushing for the elimination of this congestion in LEO, because they technologically don't need it.
Yeah.
Just some comments. And there's some other issues, and also with Earth observing satellites. I mean, they have synthetic aperture radar in GEO. God bless them. I mean, that's incredible. Like we have to have them. Even satellites are too high for some of the work we have to do with synthetic aperture radar. We'd have to have them on drones or on airplanes, but the capability that you get from a persistency is, and the coverage area in GEO is unbelievable that they've reached that technological advantage. So it relieves the congestion issue. So I imagine they would be pushing very hard for those satellites to not be there, because that's a capability that we need, because there's a US government equivalent to Starlink. I mean, the defense version that they're selling, just like they did Iridium. And so that's just some background. I'll stop there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good point. And there's something related to that, in that You know, if you go back 10 years ago, people talked about, you know, when they talked about orbital debris, they were only talking about mitigation, not making it worse, right? There was no talk about remediation. In other words, solving the problem by doing something, either deorbiting, taking some of these you know, rocket bodies that are up there, thousands of them, and it's dead satellites. There are more dead satellites than there are live satellites now, by the way. And also, so now, but there's the good news is that there's maybe about 12 active companies and maybe around 60 ones that are kind of connected or want to get involved, that are involved in repairing, refurbishing defunct satellites and rocket bodies, or keeping and deorbiting some, deorbiting as well, and also are adding modules, and this has already happened in GEO, adding modules to keep them going longer so they don't become orbital debris, and also putting some in salvage. And I think the first FAA finally gave the first fine out to a company for not putting its satellite into salvage like it should have. It was a small fine, but it's a start. So there's a whole, and there's an organization now called, I think it's called Confers. Is that right? Confers? I don't have my notes with me. That's a group of these that has, it's like a consortium of all these companies that are now interested in doing something about orbital debris that goes beyond just deorbiting some of it, but actually making some of it useful, recycling the metals that are in it, et cetera, and are reusing parts of it, repairing some, and so forth. So that is a big difference. Now that's only 2 years going on, maybe 2-3 years, that it's really is starting to take off. And that we should, I think, all be looking. I think that's going to be the future, because we can't, if you deorbited all that stuff, first of all, you're talking about low Earth orbit, first of all, you know, practically. You would create so much pollution. It creates pollution to deorbit this stuff, you know. It's not easy. So why not use it while it's up there? It's very valuable, potentially. Anyway, that's another thing that's happening, and we should be looking for it. So anyway, any other thoughts, folks?
I wanted, if we don't have any more comments on the first part of this meeting, I would like just to use a few minutes to show the list of topics that I have shared with this small group so far for our 2 events, the 12th of June, that is Scopus oriented, and the 13th of September, that is UN oriented. So I want to share this, and then I will also send this document to you, Alfred, because I think.
Okay.
I think
I forgot to ask, about the UNGA, what you folks are doing with the UNGA. That's something I should know.
Okay, so well, I think it's a little bit small. Can you read it or not?
Yeah, it's fine. For me, it is.
If I look real
Maybe you can
close.
zoom it a little bit.
Yeah, we'll zoom one more time. It would help.
I will try to zoom in just a moment.
Okay, let me. There's something I want to get here too.
Okay.
Better.
Better.
So Okay, I've made a list of topics grouped by main, let me say, argument. And in these two columns, I put which topics I think are more suitable for the 12th of June and which ones are more suitable for the 13th of September. So I think that these categories, use of space resources, space settlement, living and working in space, some big challenges, civilian-led space development and astropolitics, orbital debris, space for peace. I think this is also an interesting thing to talk about, and space law. But maybe we should also add another big topic, that is sustainability, because I understand that the concept of sustainability is a multifaceted topic, because we are talking about how space, well, in our discussion in the 18 SDG, the space development, we say that the space development will help the sustainability of the human development, because we will be moving industry outside, and that will relieve our burden on Earth, and will in the same time allow to continue to develop, to grow up, industrial and economic and everything. So this is our in the 18 SDG discussion. This is our main argument, but there is also the other argument that should be developed as well. That is the sustainable space development. That is it is of course a very important topic too. That is to develop the space, to go to space, trying to not pollute, not to make not to worsen the environment of Earth. And this is of course very important. And so maybe we should try to develop also this part of the discussion, and saying and taking positions about that, what we suggest that should be done, etc. So well, going inside this list, well, use of space resources, I think, is more interesting for couples, if we have to choose, to mainly develop in space or on Earth, the risk of a new space colonialism, the property of in place and removed space resources, the property of small asteroids, the lunar contained regions. We know that everybody wants to go to the South Pole of the moon, and that could be maybe a problem, no, an issue of astropolitics for some regions to be more frequented than other regions. And lunar materials for Earth market, like helium-3 for nuclear fusion. I believe that maybe these arguments could be interesting for the discussion on the General Assembly of the couples in June, and of course also for the United Nations, but more for couples. And about space settlement, cislunar economy, product, customers, and markets. After 100% reusable launch vehicle, what's the next step? Producing fuel in space, on orbital colonies, or moon and Mars cities. This, I believe, this could be arguments for the United Nations oriented event. Then living and working in space, some big challenges: protection of life from the sun and cosmic radiation, simulated gravity, green environment in space habitats, ergonomics, healthy and mind-safe space habitats. Artificial intelligence tools and robots are needed aids, but space is needed for human expansion versus space colonialism. And all of these arguments could be maybe interesting for the 13th of September. Then civilian-led space development and astropolitics. Artemis and ILS agreements are the optimal tools in the new astropolitic arena. How to detect and systematize best practices. So maybe we could try to say something, no? Because of course the method, Alfred was talking before about the bottom-up approach and identifying the best practices and trying to systemize them and to indicate the best practices as a good methodological item to be adopted by others. And so maybe we could try in our discussion to go ahead and to define some requirements for some methodology requirements, how to indicate which one are the best practices and why, no? So we could try to put to make these questions to ourselves and to try to expand, to develop more on this argument. The role of UN COPOS as a clearinghouse for private and public stakeholders involvement for 100% inclusivity. These, of course, these are arguments for COPOS more than for the United Nations. And then orbital debris avoidance, methodology and technologies to avoid new or debris production, remediation of the existing orbital debris, big wreckages and small pieces, the orbiting, moving to orbital storehouses, and orbital debris salvage entities, and orbital debris reuse for space infrastructure building. This is also I think, a good discussion for points for COPOS. And then space for peace. How the civilian...
Before you get to that, before you get to space for peace, I want to correct an error I made. I said that the FAA had imposed a penalty for not putting something in orbit. It was actually the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission. I just want to get on record that I want to correct my mistake. Okay.
Yes.
Please
okay.
go on.
I will send it to you so you can also add things if you think useful and correct mistakes and inaccuracies. Yes. Did I mention FAA? No.
No,
I don't
think so.
Okay.
But I did incorrectly.
No, but of course it could be useful to make reference to FAA and FCC.
Oh yes, of course. FAA is a big player in space, but I just wanted to correct something I said about the FAA. It was really FCC.
Okay. Then, well, space for peace. How civilian-led space development may contribute to peace on Earth, because making resource wars obsolete by achieving the immense resources of space. ISS is the only place where USA and Russia still collaborate. May the moon be another similar place. Thinking about now maybe USA and China. Will the Artemis and ILS programs find ways of collaboration? This could be another interesting discussion item. Then space law, privates in space, which updates to the Outer Space Treaty are needed? Privates in space, do we need new space treaties? Safeguarding investors' interests, intellectual property and industrial property, and how to help minor competitors to join the space program and enter the new space market. So in SRI, during our position paper discussion that lasted 5 months, and it was a big work, we had many discussions about the contradiction between safeguarding the interest of the investors, because if an investor put money, let's say in asteroid mining or moon mining and so on, of course he wants to have his return of investment and to be sure that he can get profit from his investment. In the same time, we are concerned because there are a lot of smaller countries and small stakeholders that may be somehow cut off of this process and not succeed to enter the market and to get their part of possibility to make business in that and so on. So this is I think a critical discussion because you know, there are also, let me say, different opposite ideological views of this problem, because the most let me say liberalist view is that the market and the investors should have all the benefit and not, I mean, making extreme view, of course, and not to have any concern for competitors, let's say, and on the other side, who is thinking more about inclusivity and to allow all the interested stakeholders to enter the arena and to work and to make their undertakings and so on, things different, that the know-how, for instance, the achieved know-how about some asteroids or some regions on the moon and so on should be shared. And so it's not an easy discussion. Eh? So, but of course, if we know that the race to the moon is going on, and this kind of problems will be probably will be rising and making and be a source of conflicts and discussions and etc. etc. So, okay, this was my proposal. Mikhail proposed another approach, that is to differentiate what he called educational topics, information topics, and organization topics. That it is not okay. Is not opposed to the discussion topics, of course, but is Mikhail proposed a necessary view of different levels, no, of topics to be proposed, and maybe Mikhail can say more about that than me. And but okay, all of this is now in the hands of Robert, that offered to cover the
to referee.
Yeah, the difficult role of putting all things together and proposing a plan. And
yeah, can I just mention one thing, because I'm going to have to go here really soon. When it's great to have all these items listed, but if you're talking about the UN or either in Vienna or UNGA, the General Assembly, you typically don't have much time to bring things go into much detail, because for instance, we have a general exchange of views 5 minutes, then our technical 10 minutes. But what I'm here, this is what I'm getting at. Hold on. I'm getting to a point.
No,
here.
but because I was not enough clear what we are talking about. We are talking about our events. So
okay,
we have 2 events. One will be a panel, the 12th of June, a virtual panel, of about 3 or 4 hours, let me say, with maybe 5 sessions, 1 hour each, with a small introduction and then a round table. So it will be different from what we made in 2023. 2023, it was more like a symposium with many speakers, each one making his own presentation. This time we accepted by now the proposal by Robert, who proposed to make it more as a round table. So each session, 5 minutes, 7 minutes introduction, and then discussion.
And I think that sounds good. And I think that it's helpful if you use the big label like sustainability, let's say,
Yeah,
or governance, let's say, or whatever label you use, and then all these little pieces can fit into that in a framework,
yes,
so that they're not all separated. They're within frameworks.
exactly. This was my idea, to put the
Yeah.
arguments under a title for each session. Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes
I mean,
sense.
and Adriano is taking advantage of this little sliver of time that we got of you. You're kind of seeing the sausage being made. So, but absolutely, the five roundtables essentially will be these 5 major topic areas, and then this is just drilling down. But those will all link to the top level issues that you brought to our attention today, that you spoke of, and that we've discussed.
Okay,
So
okay,
these
that
are
makes sense.
supporting and getting as broad support as possible throughout the 70 coalition and beyond, even larger, for those funneling up into those issues. And that's actually the advantage of doing the roundtable format, is that we can start out with posing the high level topic, we can drill down, and then at the end we need to wrap up and then come back up to a defining point. Maybe it's not consensus, maybe hopefully it is, it might not be, but a better understanding, and we kind of start beginning and then come back to it.
Yeah, it sounds good. Roundtables, I like roundtables. It sounds good what you just described. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Doing that, Randy. Sounds good.
Okay.
I'm going to have to get going here, folks. I have a few other things to do today. So
awesome. We appreciate your insight very, very much.
Okay, thanks for listening, and thanks for telling me what you give me your thoughts. And I look forward to connecting with you folks in the future and learning more about what's going on in New Zealand and in Ireland. Okay?
Yeah, likewise.
Okay.
Thank
Cool.
you. God bless you for all of your work.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye now. Bye, everybody.
Okay, so we close now. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for chatting. See you in a few days. Bye-bye.